Hi, glad you could join me. I'm Darrel Tank, and I wanted to respond to a question that was left on one of the videos, the paper, patches, and problem solving by Nick. He had a couple comments and a couple questions that I thought I'd address. It might be interesting for you as well. He wanted to know if the picture that I did of Gabby, the old man with the hat and the white beard, was inspired by the famous German Renaissance artist Albrecht Dürer, and his picture of an old man. Very simple title, but I think that's it. And lived and worked during the late 1400s and early 1500s. Anyway, this is the picture that Nick is referring to. It's not the best, but at least gives you an idea which one he's talking about. And you can go and explore some of his work if you like. It's a famous engraver and painter. And but no, just it's a coincidence that this is an old man with a hat and a beard, and mine is also. And there is no other reason except that I thought he was an interesting character, and I'm sure that's why Albert did his also. It's interesting how down through the ages we're inspired by some of the same things. I liked the character and thought it would really be a challenge and something of interest. I liked the emotion, and I would every once in a while see a character that I would like to draw, and so I would take pictures and go back to my studio and work. So anyway, that answers that question. And then see. The next question was he wanted to know if I was using crosshatching. I think I've mentioned that it's a basic form, but we're changing it drastically. It's one of the things that I feel makes it hard for people to figure out, because you don't notice that there is actually a crosshatching. I think if and Nick probably has gone to the spheres by now and seen that, yes, we are pulling from different directions. We're crossing over our previous work, but because we're not leaving spaces between the lines, it doesn't come across as a crosshatching. Crosshatching is a separate technique in my estimation. I want to have it and reserve it for special techniques when I'm drawing, or if I'm doing crosshatching, I want it to look like crosshatching, a picture used specifically with crosshatching. So now this particular picture here incorporates, some line and some that are just parallel, and then when I wanted to show the contour around the edge of the cookie, the shaded side, the underneath parts, I would go ahead and come an opposite direction from the original structure and create a crosshatching. It's when a line actually crosses over, another line, and you actually see the spaces. What we're doing with the technique as we're using crosshatching is we are filling the spaces so we no longer see that structure. And it's a real handy technique. I've done thousands and thousands of pictures for grocery store chains, and these were done in particular for Albertsons. But you'll see again that when I wanted to show where the pit was, that I just had basic parallel lines. If I wanted to show that it was a little more shaded on this side, I came across that with another direction. And then if I wanted to show a little darker than that, I actually pulled from maybe a third or fourth direction to create a little more density, closing the space a little more so that there's not as much white showing through. And if I did want to show that it was totally dark, I would go to filling the gaps entirely so that I showed the black. So I will show you another picture that might just kind of illustrate it. This again is crosshatching, and even though it's done with scratchboard, which is kind of a fun thing if you've never tried it before, you can see the obvious and definite crossing over the opposite direction of my original lines, and that is cross hatching. And I want to maintain that technique and that that look. And it teaches you a lot, because then you have to go ahead and think of other ways that you can make places lighter or darker. With the pen and ink only, I was crossing over in places I wanted to get darker, leaving the greater spaces as my places that were highlights or showing some contour in that way. In this, I'm working in a negative because I'm actually scratching ink off of a clay surface that's laid down thinly on an illustration board. It's called scratchboard. And so this way I'm removing the ink. I could go back and actually put some ink back in and modify it a little bit. I want to be careful that I don't have too large spaces without anything in it, because everything that's the same color is flat. Naturally, the black dark background is flat, but if I did want to show some subliminal contours or subliminal images in there, I would just take out very little with maybe a finer line that I'm scratching off. But anyway, it's neat to be able to work both ways. This has a little more versatility in my mind than pen and ink alone, because I'm only working with black on white paper. So the way that I would be able to suggest lighter values would be to have more space in between my lines and or a thinner line. And working with technical pens, it gave me the opportunity to do that. Going the other direction, the spaces would become less if I wanted to make it darker, and or the line would also become thicker, and I would show less paper in between. But I do want to show paper coming through, otherwise in my mind it really wouldn't be appreciated for true cross-hatching. Now again, the little boy here, or the portraits were I'm trying to show you how to develop contours with. This is again one reason why it's very difficult to figure out what I do for most people, because they could not understand I was actually using a cross-hatching foundation. But we're closing the gaps, we're putting those lines as we build them side by side, making a gradation without any interruption. It's a continuous tone, and so we're able to achieve a much different texture. And that difference in texture is what I'm really excited about, because then I can go ahead and separate the skin from hair and material and different things that I want to have. I love the range of value. I love the range of textures, and this is a great opportunity to utilize line in many, many different ways. Become comfortable with your tapered stroke, because it's going to open up, again, all kinds of opportunities for you.